Brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I know it's a working day and a late evening, and sorry about the delay, but we're good to go. Uh, I think it's a really interesting topic that we're going to talk about today, much like most of the sessions that we do on Ellipse. Um, and this one is, and for those of you in design who are already working in UI, UX, obviously understand the context of how human psychology and human-centered design plays a critical role in creating really successful products today. And what we're really going to focus on, or what Tarun is really going to be talking about, is some of the key principles that actually drive modern UI UX, ensuring that you really have consumer centricity at the heart of how you're approaching a design. And then he's also going to talk about the Psych Framework, which is a really interesting way of actually measuring an app or a website and seeing whether it really adheres to the principles that we're going to talk about. And what's interesting is that we've also, kind of evolved this into a full-fledged course, which actually Tarun is going to be doing. And that's going to happen early in Jan. So this is like almost like a sampler of what you can expect in the course. But without further ado, Tarun, over to you.
So, there's a lot being said about UI UX on a daily basis. Why I chose this topic to create a course out of was because when I got into digital some years ago, I realized that how little attention we all paid to some of the most crucial and critical things that made our business a success, which was UI UX. There is a serious amount of information overload going around the way we must talk about building technology, building product features, building functionalities, building outcomes, customer retention, customer loyalty, lifetime value, funnel management, so on and so forth. And there's one big word in the middle of all of that, which is optimization on an ongoing basis. But as I look deeper into realizing that, is this really all going to come together very seamlessly? The one thing that puts the user and us connected to each other was user interface and user experience. And that is why I realized that unless we fix UI UX and understand how to build great UI UX, we cannot create a great digital business. And so in all this information overload, one of the things that I wanted to really create was a framework that would allow all of you here on this seminar or anywhere else in the world to be able to build a business which is omni-channel, a business which can actually thrive in digital competition by understanding the psychology of the user. Andy, can you go to the next slide? So why is UI UX so critical, right? According to Forrester, companies who invest in UI UX see a much lower cost of the first thing, customer acquisition. Customer acquisition is something we're all dealing with, right? We want to make sure that we get the lowest cost of customer acquisition on an ongoing basis. We want to make sure that our customer acquisition cost is largely organic and not paid. And increasingly, it's built on referrals. How do we do all of that? We do all of that by reducing bounce rates on an ongoing basis. And what do you understand by bounce rates? Bounce rate is really the word bounce, right? Somebody comes onto the platform and bounces out without creating a transaction, without staying enough amount of time, without creating a registration and not giving you enough data about themselves so that you can connect with them again. All of that is your bounce rate. If your bounce rate is really high, then your customer acquisition, which is really leading people to the platform, is really, really high. Now, if customers can't find what they're looking for, most of you guys must be doing ticket reservations, must be doing many other things on the platform on an ongoing basis. And if you can't find what you're looking for, what do you really end up doing? You end up calling support. You end up calling customer support. And that creates the support cost for users, for companies, right? On an ongoing basis, if we increase our support cost, And if we have more and more people in the support team, then even if you have a lower customer acquisition cost, but you have a high support cost because people can't discover what they're looking for, the business is going to be not profitable for you.
That's nice dumplings. A place called Dumps and Newts.
What is,
Pork and lemongrass dumplings.
sorry, what is really psychology and why is it so relevant? Think about psychology as something that is the core of UI UX. So a designer, a business person who doesn't understand human psychology is no more successful than an architect who doesn't understand physics. And this is the reason on why most of you people who are involved in user experience, who are involved in omni-channel experiences, who are involved in making sure that businesses have digital as a part of their ecosystem, they must understand psychology as the starting point of UI UX. So understanding how people interact with the product and how their decisions can be influenced is very, very key in the UX design process. One of the key principles around psychology is cognitive psychology. And that's really the cornerstone of UX. It's what is cognitive psychology? It's really the mental model. It's the mindset. It's the point of view of the user that you must build empathy towards. And cognitive psychology looks at how mental models are formed and how they work. It's important when you are building UX to divorce yourself from what you think to build empathy to what the user thinks. The big problem on cognitive psychology is that we start to measure everything basis what we like or dislike. But that's not how the user is thinking. You may be a very evolved or a very, early young user on digital, but the user, on the other hand, may be a very mature user. The user may be very used to using complicated or complex, digital solutions. All of that may differ from where you are to versus where the user is. And more likely than not, right, what seems easy to you may seem very, very difficult to the user. And so it's very important for you to have the psychology of a user and to be able to understand the needs of the user on an ongoing basis. So this one picture really explains UX and UI. And what really happens is that we tend to use these words as equivalent to each other, but they're two very, very different words. What does UX really stand for and what does UI really stand for? UX is all about interactions and designs that build interactions. UX is all about wireframes and prototypes. UX is about building an information architecture on, okay, the user enters from here and building a flowchart to understand, okay, if the user says yes, then moves to this direction. If says no, then moves to this direction. If no, then what? If yes, then what? And so on and so forth. So an architecture on how the user's journey flows on the platform. It's also a lot about doing user research and understanding what the user really likes, dislikes, doing low fidelity tests, doing high fidelity tests once your user journeys are ready, and also building scenarios on an ongoing basis to scale up or scale down your features or functionalities. On the other side, UI is really about visual design. It's about colors. It's about graphic design. It's about making beautiful layouts. And it's about the kind of fonts and typographies that you use. And a combination of two is what creates great user experience. So it's easy. Think like a user and understand the psych. And that really is what UX is all about. Now, let me take you right into what are the principles which are really, really critical in UI UX design. And the 9 principles, Anand, can you make this full slide, please? The 9 principles really are the principle of least effort, the principle of building perpetual habit, the principle of socialization, the principle of emotion contagion, because the emotional contagion really means the emotions that flow through your through your visuals. The principle of identity, very, very important to build your own identity. The principle of beauty, right? Again, very important, because really design and visual design and beautiful design is very, very important. Anand?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, there's something on your cursor down.
1 second, yeah.
Right. The magical number.
About that. Just a minute, please. Sorry about that. Oh, just give me a minute, please. Sorry about that.
Can I
guys.
share?
Yeah, just a minute. I think we'll just move. Sorry about that. Simpler.
The psychology of mistake, and really about focus, attention, and concentration. What I will do today is I'll take you through 2 or 3 good habits out of the principles, give you some basic case studies, talk to you about even more principles outside of these 9 principles, and then end this webinar by talking to you about what is very, very critical in this game, which is for you to be able to evaluate your UI UX on an ongoing basis and give you a framework called the Psych Framework. So really, the principle of least effort is about, making sure that people get ways to complete tasks with least possible effort. Everybody in life wants to take least possible effort, right? What shouldn't happen is that the user design makes the user take far more effort than the user would want to take. And so user experience is really got to be equivalent to user design, which is equivalent to the least principle of least effort. Over the years, everybody has given you logins by Google, by Facebook, and many others. Why do they do that? It's because they want to make your login process or your onboarding process really easy. Why do websites not take too much data right on top, even at e-commerce? Let you shop, let you build your basket, and then only ask you for details at the time that you either just about to pay or after your checkout. It's because they want to make sure that you have the least amount of effort in making sure that you choose the kind of products you want, you pay for the products you want, and only then do I take addresses of delivery and so on and so forth to you, which are important, necessary, but laborious tasks that don't need to happen before you've even decided whether you're going to buy something or not. These basic principles are the principles of least effort. You may think that they're really, really simple, but I can tell you that in any UI UX, there are multiple steps that get created by us as business people, as us as designers, us as product people, thinking that the users will find it easy or will be interested in them. But in reality, they are completely unnecessary in the UI UX story for a user. Let me take you to the next one, which is the principle of perpetual habit. Very, very important, right? All of us in the quest of wanting to make our website look new, look different, look very, very bold and very, very unique, forget that man is a creature of habit. And man, by man, I mean men, women, as in human being is a creature of habit, right? They get cues, they create a routine, you reward them for the routine, and that gives them more cues. And that is very important in UX design. You never should grow too desperate in your effort to make the website stand out. You've got to try to keep all your iconography, both in terms of location and in terms of the icons themselves, as traditional as they should be. A home should look like home. and it should be at a certain place where people find it all the time. Search bars should look like search bars and should be put in a place where people are used to looking for search bars. A shopping cart should look like a shopping cart and should be put at a place where most websites find their shopping cart to be, because that makes navigation extremely simple and easy for the user on an ongoing basis. Users should learn and go around your website or your app in maximum 2 sessions. If they're taking longer than that to be able to discover and find different features, functionalities, and things on your app, then there is a real problem. And user experience and SEO is directly linked to the way you create your iconography, your content, your sitemap, your bottom header, your bottom navigation, your headers, and so on and so forth. Because the Google bot also looks for standard things in standard places. And more of this when we do the course, but SEO, which is a direct link to your organic traffic, is very important for you, and UI UX is directly linked to your SEO ranking. Then brings in the principle of emotional contagion, right? Why is that so important? It's because when you put up good positive emotions on your websites, whether they are testimonials, whether they are happy customers, whether they are happy visuals, you attract more and more positive, happy customers to your platform. And to be able to get enough positive testimonials right on top of your website, right on top of your experience is very, very important. Extremely critical when you're building out something in B2B, extremely critical when testimonials or high value items require people to be able to endorse that to you. Then comes the psychology of mistakes. You, as a design person, as a business person, want people to be able to complete as many tasks on the platform. And that is why you've got to predict where users may make mistakes and which functions or flows may seem confusing or create uncertainty, which is where it's very important to be able to do user testing and low fidelity, tests or high fidelity tests with users. You've got to implement action confirmation wherever important. You must have an undo button. And if users are making a mistake, then it's important to be able to have coach cards or intuitive pop-ups that are able to guide the experience of the user on your platform. Remember, every mistake that the user makes, every mistake that leads to incomplete forms, incomplete shopping carts, incomplete user behavior is costing you in terms of conversion from your top funnel to your bottom funnel. So every time you build an action for the user on the platform, try predicting how the user could go wrong in being able to complete that action. And if you can predict that in as many ways, then build as many backups or as many coach cards or as many fallbacks for the user to be able to complete that action without making that mistake or correcting that mistake with a lot of ease. If you are getting confused, if an average user is getting confused, take that as a signal of bad UI and UX and correct that at the start itself. Also remember, people need to be guided around their focus, their attention, and their concentration. If you can tell people how many actions are left to complete a task, then they know that they are on the right path. It's almost like, as you go along in any journey and let me take that as my entire life in the local train in Mumbai. The first thing that you look out every time the train stops is that as which station have you reached and how closer are you to your destination? If people know that they're getting closer to their destination, they're bound to have less anxiety. They're bound to know their path, and they're bound to stay on their path. So your product has to stand out. People have to be attracted and interested in the new thing. And you've got to have a timeline that illustrates the step-by-step movement of the user on his or her journey. There are then other principles like the serial position effect from left to right. If you look at Twitter, Medium, Product Hunt, all of them give you an understanding of how you must move. So what happens on the left and what happens on the right. It's very, very important to understand serial position effect. Home always goes on the left. Your ability to do stuff, whether it's home here, whether it's add new users, whether it's home here, whether it's home here, whether it's for you and home here, whether it's home here. It's always left to right. It's always left to right. What do you use on the platform first? It's the feed, it's the home. And so the home must always be on the left because that's how your eye moves. And these are very, very simple principles, but they're very, very critical principles when you're either building or evaluating UI UX. The big principle in all of this is really cognitive load. It's the amount of thought that you need to exercise in order to complete the task. You've got to make sure that people require the least amount of time in being able to move forward in doing a task on your platform. And in the course, I will take you through a lot more of cognitive load exercises because I do believe that this is the core of building great UI UX. And then there is a Hicks law. The way you place out stuff, right, is directly proportionate to actions users take. Look at the first, look at the second, look at the third, right? The hard, the easier, and the easiest. So if the number of choices increase, the time to make a decision increases that much more. Remember, it's not about providing a million choices, but it's about providing the right number of choices so that people can make a decision. Having lots and lots of items on line items on something is not going to lead people to take the right kind of decision. And so whether you go to a shopping app or you go to a video app, you will realize that there is only those many number of tiles that you must place on a single Android or iOS phone so that people are able to make a decision easily. That brings me to the Psych Framework. I haven't covered all of these principles because we don't really have the time today, but to let you know about all the principles, these are really the 9 principles: least effort, perpetual habit, socialization, emotional contagion. I haven't covered identity. I haven't covered beauty. I haven't covered the magic number 7, very, very important for e-commerce. We spoke a little bit about mistakes and we spoke a little bit about concentration. And we then covered things like the serial position effect, the cognitive load, and the Hicks law. That brings me to a very important part of the course eventually, which is going to be the Psych Framework, which will allow you to be able to understand whether you've got a great website or a great app on your hand, or there is a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover for you. The secret of top growth expert in tech is to think about every UX interaction as an emotional event. And why am I saying it's an emotional event? Because every element on your page either adds or subtracts to the emotional energy of the user. And it's very important to inspire users to take the next steps, to convert into loyal users, to convert into paying users, to convert into longer session time. And it's as important to inspire users as it is to be able to reduce friction, which was the first part of what we were discussing. And the Psych Framework really measures every element on the site for either a negative emotional element or a positive emotional element. Whether it's the arrival on the site, whether it's the desirable offer on the headline, whether it's the attractive design, whether it's about you asking for data, or whether you are asking for payments. Every single element leads to a positive or a negative psych. And how do you reduce the negative psych and how you increase the positive psych is what really the psych framework is all about. We measure user energy in psych from 0 up to 100, and the elements in psych are really either positive or negative. Positive psych in your UI can massively drive user excitement. Think about Tinder, right? The line says, discover new and interesting people nearby. What would you say? Yes, let's do that. Even married men and women may do that. But, being unaware of the negative psych in your product can also massively decrease success. So a global entry site says, fill in 40 form fields about yourself. Who's going to really fill 40 form fields about anybody, right? You're going to immediately close and move on. Even though you may really require those 40 form fields, you've got to decide how you should be able to, in a progressive design, in a progressive data collection manner, get to your 40 form fields. You cannot possibly expect users to be able to fill long forms at the start of their user journey. So summing this up, on this webinar, cognitive load, which is the amount of information that can either cause positive or negative side, can be reduced in 4 or 5 ways. One, in making sure you organize information better and cleaner, right? Second is you removing unnecessary actions on the platform. Third is making sure you declutter the design. Fourth is use familiar patterns. And fifth is keeping it really, really simple. This and more is going to get covered in the course, but we're also going to help you use a lot more resources like Blastmic, like Browser Stack, like Optimizely, like Asana, like Campfire, in being able to either A/B test or in being able to learn to design yourself on things like cognitive load and things like the psych test. So really the week 1 is going to cover the introduction to UI UX. Why is it so critical? Why are they interlinked? Introduction to the UI UX psychology, understanding consumer behavior, motivation, and expectations. Week 2, we will really delve deep into the 9 psychology principles. We'll link them to the human mind and the importance of these principles in UI UX. In week 3, I'm going to help you deploy these principles in design, which is where we're going to use the tools. We're going to translate this into developing real-time UI UX. Going to look at case studies of best and improvement-led examples for every principle. And then we're going to understand cognitive load. We are then going to move into the Psych Framework. We're going to look at Psych units, Psych elements. We're going to evaluate the Psych score of either your own websites or websites that we will provide to you in being able to look at good and bad psych, and how do we really maximum psych and decrease cognitive load. And at the last week, we are going to use the 9 principles of Psych Framework or the Psych Framework to evaluate or re-engineer your own application or another application using UI UX tool. So really, this is what is going to be the course on psychology and UI UX principles. I'm looking forward to having some of you guys join the course. We have limited number of seats and it's a limited cohort, but I will be keen in working with each of you guys individually. We're also going to bring in 3 or 4 very good global designers who can come and help you understand UI UX design, so that as digital marketers, as digital omni-channel business experts, as UI UX designers, as product managers, you stay on top of this game. Thank you so much for making the time. Have a lovely Christmas ahead. Have a great New Year, and I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions? So Vishal, we'll send you the details. And you can also check out our website at www.elieves.net, where the course, all the course content in terms of what it's going to cover, how it's going to be delivered is all available on the website. So do visit us there. And you can also get the contact details for our team who will be in touch with you then to take you through the course and how you can join in as a student. But, aside from that, we'd love to hear from any of you on questions for Tarun related to the psychology principles or related to the Psych Framework. Any thoughts, any questions? You can just raise your hand and, unmute yourself and ask Tarun.
Hi, Tarun.
Hey, Neeti, how are you?
Hello. I'm very good. How are you?
Good, good.
So I had a question that these principles, while right now I think we're talking about hardcore products and maybe e-commerce, since you mentioned quite a few examples from those sectors, could we use this program for even designing own websites and blogs,
Yeah, I mean,
etc.?
perfectly right. I didn't talk about it because a lot of people don't invest in creating websites for themselves. But yes, your own website, your own blog, a B2B platform, a lead generation platform, a landing page, all of this gets covered, and all of these will be part of the case studies.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Most welcome.
Anyone else? Any questions? You can just unmute and ask.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Great.
All the best, guys, and see some of you guys on the program. Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Take care. Have a good evening. And we'll see you soon. Cheers, everyone. Take care.